Hi, lab mates. Welcome to the Social Learning Lab, a podcast about social learning at work.
Welcome back, lab mates, to another episode of the Social Learning Lab. I'm here with Rocio and Nicole, and we are going into our final episode of season one, our season one recap. How excited are you two both today?
No, I'm just kidding.
I'm excited to talk about our favorite moments and what we learned, not just from our guests, but just as, like being new at this podcast thing. There were definitely a lot of lessons learned.
Definitely.
Yes, a lot of lessons. not
But
to not to say that there wasn't a lot of good stuff. Just we definitely learned a lot.
yes, for sure. And it's been exciting getting to, work on this project. It was fast, furious, but we got it done, and here we are now getting to finally recap everything we've been through in the past
it
2 or 3 months. So
It
why don't we
went
start
super
with
fast.
what was our favorite episode of the entire podcast? How about we start with Rocio?
I have two favorite episodes. I have the second episode where we talk about like what influenced people, so like social influence. And I like that one because it was like the three of us, and I think the conversation was so organic and so, it flowed so well. It's a long episode, but you don't feel the how long it is because you're like into the conversation. And I really enjoyed that one. It was just the three of us, and I like talking, so it was nice to just share our ideas around that. And then my other one is the episode with Lyle, which I think is episode 4, the psychological safety one. I just feel like I learned a lot about myself in that episode. And I don't know, like if you watch the recording, like you can tell that he's talking and like I'm like in another place, like evaluating my life and all the things that he's saying. And I'm like, yeah, like I'm a little bit lost in the background. But I really liked that episode, and something that from that episode, something that really stuck with me was when he was talking about, because when you think you're like, oh, I'm so overwhelmed, um, there's so much going on, but when you start like unstacking those layers of overwhelmed and like all those things that affect us, like at a personal level, at a work level, at a social level, like all those things, then you're like, yeah, this is why our generate this new generations are the way that we are, and everybody's like seeking therapy and all these things. But and then we talked about like social you know social learning and how that comes into play, how psychological safety is an important part of social learning, and it just keeps coming up. I feel like that topic keeps coming up at work, with friends. It's everywhere right now, so I really enjoyed that episode.
It was cool to hear somebody's perspective who is not necessarily a learning and development
Mhm.
expert, although, Lyle and his company turn out learning experiences. It was just interesting to hear kind of it's not quite clinical, but I guess the counselor's perspective, the business owner's perspective. It
Mhm.
was definitely interesting to me to hear what he had to say.
Definitely, I think it was exciting to hear about it from like Nicole said, a different perspective. And I think somebody as who has that much knowledge within that realm, it's really important, especially for other people to see it from that perspective. Because I mean, I think we can all see it from being the employee, but seeing it from now a business side of it is definitely an important aspect of it. So,
Yeah.
Nicole, how about you? What was your favorite episode of the season?
Such a tough call. I think I landed on Mo's episode, and perhaps I'm biased because Mo and I have chatted and done things together before, but just like in terms of how many things I could grab from that episode and immediately start to implement into our work as a social learning agency, and just thinking about how others might put social learning to work in their organizations, it felt like there was just so much to take away that was immediately useful. And Mo was such a wonderful guest to have because he doesn't just have that practical experience, but he also has that academic experience. So, he would explain theories and give you that grounding, but then he gave you the like, well, this is how it works in real life. And you don't always get that when you talk to people in
Mhm.
our field. A lot of people became accidental trainers. So for me, I love the conversation. I loved how many things we were able to capture, and just, Mo's a cool guy. So just talking to Mo
Yeah.
was fun.
Yeah, I was sad I missed that episode. I really wanted to be on it.
I
But
definitely.
We missed you. We did.
And it's such a fun episode to like edit and all that and like hear it back. Like you actually do learn a lot because, like you said, Mo knows has a lot of resources that he uses and he puts them in his own implementations and stuff like that. So it's like really interesting to see how his mind works as like a creator and kind of like because it's similar to like being a graphic designer. You get to create things, and so I kind of put in that perspective with Mo, and I was like, it's so similar, like putting the puzzle pieces together and all that, and creating these games for people to put the simulation through and actually learn from it because it's so true. You learn from hands-on experience versus just sitting there and watching a PowerPoint. So I was really intrigued by Mo.
yeah. It's
He was a fun one.
I think it's also nice to talk to people that are willing to share so much. It's hard sometimes, when you're talking to people and you know that, but he just shares everything. There's no gatekeeping. It's like,
There
here's
is
all my
none.
tools. Here's all my tools. You can use them. I went through this struggle. I don't want you to struggle. You don't have to go through the hurdles I had to go through to achieve all this knowledge. Here's all that knowledge for you. And I really appreciate that.
And
Um,
as a leadership model,
yeah.
that's so impactful because right, you kind of do get this anxiety that you're in competition with your peers all the time, or even with, for us, our business is in competition with other businesses. And so people hide the information, but that slows innovation. Like maybe what Mo has to say is the thing that sparks you, but you can imagine it in a way that Mo couldn't. And then that can come back and inform someone else. And ultimately that collective knowledge and collective creation is how we build better things. And it's
Yeah.
why I believe in social learning. It's just one of
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
things.
And it's also part of social learning too. Like there can't be gatekeeping in social learning, right? Like it has
Mhm.
to be, you have to be willing to share with your peers all the innovative stuff that you come up with in order for everybody to be successful. So I enjoyed that part.
I agree. Like I said, artists are one of the biggest thieves because they steal each other's ideas. So for me, it's like listening to all this like just helps me out because I'm like I could see myself implementing this stuff into like what I'm doing in my real world. So like you said, gatekeeping is not great for anybody. Even
Mhm.
as a sports team, we talk about not holding secrets within each other because we're playing for the same reason. So it's like always tell each other everything and stuff like that. So I think, like you said, it's important in society to like share what you know with others because it could spark the next big thing and lead everybody into a greater path. So,
How about you, Diego? What's
Yeah.
your favorite episode?
so for me, like I said, I sat and listened to every episode probably 3 times to
Mhm.
make sure I edited correctly. So, but I really loved Layla's episode. Layla just brings a lot of knowledge and wisdom to her field, and it was just so inspiring listening to her talk. I told Nicole, I was like, I could listen to her like talk all day. Like the way she just has her like presence and her demeanor about herself is just so put together, so well formed. And one thing that really stood out with me, and I actually texted my mom about this, is that I said it's a quote of the day from my job. I said self knowledge comes a lot about this identifying yourself within humanity, not with a position or a title. And I thought that was really just something that stood out because it's like you have to be able to take a step back and look at what's happening around you and self-identify what is bothering you and stuff like that, and then putting it to how can I change and not let others dictate how I feel and how I interact with them. And I thought it was really inspiring because a lot of the times we like to blame people for what's happening around us, but we can't really put the blame without ever looking within and saying, well, maybe why is this upsetting to me, or why is this making me frustrated. And I thought that was just something that I never really thought about. And so that psychological part that she put into it, I'm just like using your mind to like create this better world for yourself by looking within and then reflecting on without was just something that stood out so well to me. And I was like, I needed that lesson at that time at the right moment. So it was really good to just hear her. And I was just really inspired by her. She was my favorite of all our guests this season because like I said, I wish she just had a podcast. She does have a podcast, but I just
She
like
does have a podcast. Yeah.
like
Knowledge mindfulness torch.
and listen to her all day long, like just the way she talks, the way she talks. So it was great.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think when we met with her initially, not related to the podcast, afterwards, me and Nicole were just like, she's so good. Like you just feel like enthralled by
Yes,
her
indeed.
demeanor, like you said. I think that that lesson that you're talking about is an important one, and I actually learned that lesson in my first class in my master's program. We were in a management class, and we were talking. We took like this like quiz thing, and one of the things was like I think it's called a internal versus an external locus of control, where you like you either take responsibility for things or you put the responsibility outside of you, so you're never at fault for the things or like the consequences that come your way. And I learned that lesson, and that lesson stuck with me from that class. Like that's what I remember. So I'm very conscious now of not being like, well, this happened no, this happened because I, and then that's what makes it an internal
Yeah.
locus. I think that's the word, locus of
Yeah, yeah,
control.
it is. Locus of
Yeah.
control. Yeah. It's powerful, right? I mean, it's not
Hmm.
easy. I blame things all the time, right? And management,
Yeah.
but whatever. But it is powerful because you stop being subjected to your environment and you
Hmm.
become the person in control to some degree of what happens next. Like obviously there are things you can't control. You can't control time, you can't
Yeah.
control how people respond to you, but you can always control how you react and respond in a situation.
Mhm.
And you can also like now focus on the solution, right? Like
Yes.
we're moved past that, and especially as a manager, right? Like if you have people working under you, at the end of the day, as the manager, you have to be able to say like, even if it was someone in your team, that's your team and you're the leader, so you have to say, you have to recognize your own faults there, um, and then say, okay, so this is how we move on from that. So definitely a good lesson to learn in your early 20s.
Right. Yeah, I agree.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
It also reminds me, speaking of social learning, I meet with my friends Robin Sargent from Idol Academy and Vanessa Alzate from Anchor Training often. And, sometimes things are tough and we talk about those challenges. And one of the things Robin told me that she learned from a, I forget the terminology. I want to say healer, but I don't think that's the correct word. But it was a meditation that was essentially being um, an exercise in renouncing all the things you think like you are or should be. So instead of being like, I'm Nicole, I'm the owner of your instructional, you'd be like, I am not a business owner, I am not a mother. And you try to get rid of everything until you get to the core of who you are as a person.
Mm.
And so I always think that's an interesting exercise. I personally struggle a lot with. Like I'm like, well, who am I under all those layers? Um, and then you start to make those connections to then all the things that are in your life, right? So these communities you're a part of, how you interact with people, what you believe your core values are. I thought it was an interesting exercise and kind of reminded me of
Yeah.
Layla's statement.
Mhm. Definitely.
Yeah.
So I guess my next question for y'all, now that we've gone through a full season, what has been the biggest thing you've learned about yourself since we started the podcast? Like what has changed within you? What do you feel like? How do you feel about it? We'll start with Nicole on this one.
Oh, totally on the spot because I didn't know this question was coming at all. Just so you know, if you're listening, what did I feel like I learned about myself? I think that well, I don't know if it's a result of the podcast or just everything that's been happening during this season while the podcast is happening. But like, it is just a reminder that a lot of times I hear all these tips and I'm like, oh, I'm going to go try that. And like, I have to remember to let you all try that sometimes, right? And so like it's been an exercise of getting excited about what I'm hearing and being like, nope, I'm gonna give that to Diego, or nope, I'm gonna let Katie try that, or nope, I'm gonna let Rocio live in her lane and do it better than I'm gonna do it anyway, even though I want to tinker. And so that's been like a kind of fun side by side because the guests really get me jazzed up and excited, and then I have to like temper my excitement.
Definitely. How about you, Rocio?
um I think, when I said like, yeah, I'm gonna do the podcast, I was excited, but definitely like reluctant, right? To like, what am I gonna say? what kind of knowledge am I gonna be able to like share with people? Thinking about me, and then like all these people, all the guests that we're speaking with are like experts, and then like Nicole, who's very humble about her expertise, but she knows a lot.
Right.
I don't feel
um,
like it.
that's what I'm saying. She's very humble about being an expert. But you know, I and it's always been like that, right? Like you walk into like a even with my masters, and you're like, oh, what am I doing here, right? But then I do circles around everybody in the class. Humble brag a little bit. But what I'm trying to say is that you walk in and you're like, yeah, I have nothing to bring, but then you're in it, and it's like so exciting to be able to like hear yourself later, like have these conversations, and you're like, oh, wait, I actually do have things to say, and I actually like do bring a certain knowledge or like personality or like whatever it is. So I think that has been a very like good self-esteem boost, kind of kicking imposter syndrome in the butt for me, at least this first season. I'm sure next, I'm super excited for, we're not talking about season 2, but I'm super excited about season 2 already.
Talk a little bit about it. Sneak peeks in here. But I just want to echo that you and Diego have both done an exceptional job. And I know that, there was some trepidation or some hesitation about, being ready, but you both rose to the challenge and you did a great job. And our guests, I think, felt very much welcomed and like they were treated with respect and that they were able to share their expertise in a way that was authentic to them. So I just want to celebrate the fact that you two both knocked it out of the park this season. And I know it's just going to get better and better.
Thanks.
Thanks. I think for me, um, honestly, I learned a lot about myself through this because, like you said, we're getting in all these experts and stuff like that, and they're teaching so many lessons, and still being in college, still learning, who I am as a person and all that. I'm learning about like, real world experiences. And even though a lot of it's from a business standpoint, it still applies to real life. And like we said, it's, we talk about social learning and stuff like that. And I look at it into, what I can do and stuff like that. And honestly, I've been socially influenced now to be more of a person that uses my voice more. And actually, I started my own podcast with my friend, which I probably would have never done had I done this. So it's that kind of thing is like it broke me out of my shell, I will say, because I definitely was always one who wants to be behind the camera, never in front of the camera. And after I had to do my first host with Tristia, I think that was when I was like, oh, I can actually like do this. Like I had full confidence in myself that I was like, oh, I said Nicole has confidence in me, Rosia has confidence in me, I can do this, like we can do this. And so I just thank you for letting me be a part of it, and really allow me to break out of my shell and use my personality and come in and see what ideas I can, offer. Even though I'm still learning a lot, it's been great. So
You found your voice, Diego. That's such a nice sentiment to have.
Yes.
um, we
You're
love
fantastic.
oh, thank you.
And you've been not just a part of it. Like we couldn't have done this season without you. So I hope you know
yeah.
that. Like it's not just like you're an add-on. Like that you are a very much core part of the reason this podcast exists and can exist.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, I don't think it would have happened with all like the back things that need to happen, and the editing and the graphics and the marketing and the we just talk. You do like all the back work and talk. So
Oh,
props to you, man.
thank you. Thank you. Yes, it's
I
been
think
interesting. It's been fun. But yeah.
it's really interesting to me that three of us, even though this is all about social learning, we all came to very individual and introspective conclusions about who we are as workers and people. And I just think that's really interesting.
Yeah.
The power of social influence
Yeah,
and
yeah.
social learning. So I guess my next question is going to go into next season. What are we most excited for? What are we thinking?
So many
Without
things.
sharing too much information, what can we want to share with our audience about next season that we're excited for?
We have a lot of great topics, so I'll let you talk about them. But, going into this season, I knew the community would be very small and probably not super active. Like we didn't have the means, the time, we kind of piloted it, right? So like next season, aside from all of the awesome content and guests that we're going to book, and have on the show. I'm really looking forward to going in with our way of thinking about community and amplifying it and really energizing it and using that space in ways that it's been pretty quiet this season, but also we knew it would be pretty quiet the first season.
Right. I
So
even
yeah.
think the first season for us to have one of our own audience members make a podcast based off our podcast, that was something that was really special because like we kind of it was like almost like a little bit of a feedback as to how we were doing for our first episode. And I think it was really good to like give us that like momentum to keep going forward, that this is what people want, this is what people are going to listen to. And I think it was really exciting to hear that. I just really liked that we actually had somebody make their own podcast based off our episodes, so I thought that was just so cool about that. And I can't wait to see our audience continue to grow. I think each and every episode, we're getting more people who are interested. And like I said, it's every person has their own niche, and they're going to find an episode that resonates with them more than others, like we all have. And I think that's just going to continue building the community more.
Yeah. Um, I'm looking forward to like, this is not like season related. This is like project manager related. That everything is gonna go smoother. Like, like we already have like plans in place. Like Diego was handling most of this. I wasn't like involved in the project management fully, right? But like from the outside looking in, like there was definitely like, oh my god, like what is going on? I don't, like because everything was happening at the same time, like the guest and the marketing and this and that, and I had no list to go by.
This is probably Rocio's biggest nightmare.
Yeah,
Like,
this
just
is
she
like,
just had to hope that we were
what
getting
is
it
it
done
that we
on
do?
time and on.
Mostly for Halloween, you walk into a haunted house, but it's just a project with no to-do list. Yeah, this
Yes.
is definitely it.
No project plan whatsoever.
Um, so uh I'm excited to like have like a concrete plan for season 2 of like, these are the dates, this is when it's gonna happen, like, the email is going out this day. These are just the things that make me happy, as a person. But I'm also looking forward to the lineup that we have for the topics of the episodes, and continuing that conversation around social learning,
Mhm.
because it's everywhere. Like,
Yes.
it's just exciting to like get a topic that you don't think that social learning is involved, and then being like, but wait, we can, this is a conversation that we could have in a social learning setting. So looking forward to that.
I agree. I'm I agree kind of with Rocio on this one. I think I'm more excited to look forward to like I said, this season was fun because each week it was something new. A new challenge would present itself. Sometimes the software wasn't working. Sometimes we had to
Yeah.
change all our software. But like now, looking on it, like there's a new plan of attack. Now we kind of got all the bumps and bruises out of the way. Everything's now getting polished and ironed, and so I think it's gonna be just fun to just sit back and just enjoy it, take our time now, and like really like fully see it develop out and like have that like you said, that concrete plans in place now that we're like, okay, we know what we're going to do, we know how we're going to communicate. And I think, like I said, I'm just excited to talk to more guests. I think it's so interesting picking different people's brains and seeing what they have to say, and like learning something new every day is just, it's something really impactful, I think. And it's still being in school and all that, learning is still what I'm doing, but like at the same time, I'm like, I'm learning stuff that I'm not even learning in college, and it's like I can apply to the real world. So that's something that I'm really just looking forward to, is how much more I'm going to evolve within the next year doing this podcast more, and this next season and stuff like that. So I'm excited for that.
I think it's going to be a really great season. The other thing, since we're talking logistics, is that, and I'd be curious. So, if you're listening and you're a member of the community or now going to be a lab mate, I'd just be interested to hear what people think about the different formats. Because sometimes we did these more panel ones, sometimes we did like the social learning influence. We're going to do one on social learning activities, right? That's going to be some more like that, an internal team based one. So, do people like that? Is that what we should go with? I mean, for me personally, I would love to see just a little bit more, I guess, structure and pull back to the social learning. I think we love our guests, and maybe and some of them we stayed pretty broad, and so maybe next season I would say we're gonna narrow in a little bit closer. But it will feel much better. Now we've got like templates for the interview guides. We have kind of an idea of what this process looks like. What Rocio said, Diego has mastered the art of the tools even when they are being uncooperative. I mean, it's exciting.
Agreed. So, all right, going into our episode list, Nicole, would you like to share some of the topics that we will be discussing in season two?
Oh, sure. I would definitely do that, but first I have to pull it up on my computer. So give me one second. It's right here. It's actually the first thing because I look at it like all the time and it just jazzes me up. Um, and given between now and when we officially launch the next season, there may be some slight adjustments, but this is pretty much what you can expect. Like you said, we're going to internally be sharing some of our best strategies for implementing activities that infuse social learning. So that'll be a real practical, fun episode to kick the season off with. We're hoping to do a little bit about conferences and how they're functioning as social learning experiences, more about the brain, perhaps, about using cohorts to teach some really important skill sets. We're going to hopefully talk to some technology partners and learn more about tools, that sort of thing. Definitely going to be looking at cohorts. I mean, that is going to be a big piece of next season. We may be talking about storytelling. We are trying to get the guests that we love to be talking about that. And hopefully, we'll have some members of the Facebook community, our lab mates, share some of their experiences. And there's more in there. So that's what we think you can expect for season two. Most of that's a yes, but there's a little room for some things to wiggle around between this session of recording and when we start stacking up our season two episode recordings. So I don't know. How are you all feeling about that schedule? Anything you're most looking forward to?
I'm looking forward to any episode that's a part two of season one. I think
Yeah.
that continuing the conversations, um, whatever it is, I'm excited for that because now I have a little bit knowledge from the first season, and then on the second season we can focus on something else, or like, if the first season was like a general information, then the second season we can like narrow it down even more. So I am always excited for part twos, and threes, and maybe it's just a reappearing topic, season to season. But there's definitely topics that we could have talked a lot about, but we only had a certain amount of time. So I'm
There's
excited for that.
a whole podcast to be had
Yeah,
about psychological safety at work, right?
yeah, for sure, for sure.
No, yeah, I think I'm looking forward to more of the discussion podcast. I think it's really nice just sitting, like you said, within us three or four of the team and just talking with each other. I think those are just really fun and like, you know, it's fun to just sit down with your colleagues and talk about it like for days and just have fun with it and stuff like that. But I'm also just looking forward to some of the, like I said, more of the technology based ones since that's kind of more of where I'm headed and stuff like that. So I kind of am really excited for those kind of talks and sitting down with the guests and kind of like you said, like I said, picking their brains and finding out what they're doing and how I could use some of those tools to what we're doing here at your instructional designer. So it's great. I'm excited.
Yeah, I think that's where I love hearing from. Well, we're going to be talking about some like use of the tools you have in your system already kind of stuff. And then we're going to be talking to more of the vendory side. And so I love hearing from their perspective because it's always interesting to see how our design gets enacted in their environments and how they think about it. So I'm excited for that piece too, and a whole bunch of other stuff. I mean, it gets me jazzed up. I'm also really excited. The last thing I would say, and if you back out now, you're in trouble, Katie, but not really. But I'm excited that Katie is going to join us for the next season. And so I've officially said this to the world now, Katie. So you're stuck. You
Yeah,
can't rule of influence. But
I was
I
waiting
hope
for somebody to say it. But
yeah. I'm hoping more of our team members will come on and whether they, host or guest host or just jump in for an episode. I'd love to see that.
me too.
I'm excited for that too.
The whole family. The whole.
She's so darn smart.
I know. I'm excited. I'm excited.
All right,
Cool.
lab mates.
Well,
Well, this was our episode for today. We are super excited and we want to thank all of you for taking the time this season to listen to us and get through season one with us. We are super excited to launch season two coming at the beginning of next year, and we look forward to seeing you all in season 2. Again, continue to make learning that matters and engage with each other on our Social Learning Lab community on Facebook, and we will see you next time.
Bye.
Well, that takes us to the end of our first season. Can you believe it? We have covered so much ground, from social influence to XR to psychological safety to social learning networks and more. What was your favorite episode? We'd love to know. And equally important, who do you want to hear next season? Share your opinions with us in the community. Before we sign out for the season, we'd also like to ask you a favor because we want to see this podcast make an impact. If you've enjoyed the episode, please leave us a review, like, subscribe, or share it so that we can continue to build a supportive group of social learning enthusiasts. Thank you so much for being a part of our community, LabMate. Until next time, keep making learning that matters.